Good morning, this is Chandra Easton from StarAstrologyHealing.com speaking to you today about my travels around Australia through the series This Ancient Land. You can find this. I'm currently in the Kimberleys. I've been in the Kimberleys for the last month, I think. I'm in the West Kimberleys, and I'm going to speak to you today about the Saltwater people of the West Kimberleys. Specifically, I came back to Derby because there was a documentary that's been decades in the making called Namarali. This is a documentary on the Woolagoodja tradition and specifically on the life of Yorna Woolagoodja. And I came back to Derby because of this. The spirit of the Woolagoodja is very prominent here in the West Kimberleys and in Derby, and not because the people who are living here in Derby have been dispossessed from their lands, and I'll get to that when I get to the map to show you. This first map here, you can see here I am in the northwestern part of Australia, and I've been in Broome for a week maybe, and I've come back to Derby, and you see the mouth of water that Derby sits upon. This is the King's Sound, and if you look further north, if you follow the line of the coast, it goes up towards the King Edward River. Well, here on this next map you can see the Saltwater people who hold the responsibility for the Woolagoodja tradition. They are the Wurra, the Warrnambool, and the Nagarina, if I can pronounce it, up there in the top part of the Kimberleys. So there are many language groups and many nations in the Kimberleys, and it's these three people that I'm referring to when I speak about the Saltwater people. And as I said, they were dispossessed of their lands back in the 50s and shifted as part of the Australian government's policy of assimilation. They were shifted down to the region of along the coast and eventually back down to Derby on the King's Sound. Now the King's Sound's where the mighty Fitzroy River enters the Indian Ocean, and it's I didn't know this until I got here. It has the highest tides in Australia and some of the highest in the world that go up to almost 12 metres. The sound itself is 120 kilometres in depth and 50 kilometres in width, and so of course you can just see a tiny part of it when I'm standing here on the jetty. Unlike Broome, which is more sandy, this is mud flats, and so of course not a big tourist mecca. And I grew up on the north side of Brisbane on the mud flats there around Redcliffe and the Brighton area, so I found it kind of familiar being in the land of the mud flats and huge tidal areas, many hawks about. When I wandered through the museum, I came upon this very old hand-carved canoe which had washed up on the shore about 300 kilometres further north and found its way down to the museum in Derby. I've been staying at the station, Birdwood station, out of Derby, which is known for, this image here is from the wet season. Well, I'm here in the dry season, so unfortunately I haven't had any of this extraordinary wet weather, but it's been very hot, very humid, and there are, of all things, peacocks and guinea fowls and roosters, and it's a place of retreat. The other thing that this region's known for is the baobab tree, known in the indigenous tradition as the La Kadi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And there are baobabs all around the region, and if you're interested, I invite you to do some research yourself around it. These trees are hollow, and ones that receive water, like this one here outside the Aboriginal Health Centre, is in full flower, but most of them, 90% of the ones that I've seen, have no foliage because there's just not enough rain. There's a beautiful image here of Kirsty Berger's Lalgardi with the Woolagoodja inside it, and it's a sacred tree. Yes, and apparently has a flower. I haven't seen any of them in flower, but this beautiful pale lemon flower is part of the boab. I've seen lots of them catching the light of the sun. I went to visit this very, very sad boab, which is a sacred tree that has been abused, is the only way I can describe it, by the white European settlers, and used of all things to hold people prisoners. Shocking history there, which I won't really go into, which is behind us now. Of course, there's incredible artwork of the boabs in the Spinifex country, and the indigenous people carve them and make them into objects of beauty. They put football jerseys on them, they put emus, kangaroos, fish, you name it. And I think I've shown you before this very large nut that I found. What I really wanted to talk to you about was this documentary, Namarali, the biography of the Woolagoodja, and Donnie Woolagoodja's life by Tim Mummery. I went last night to the inaugural showing, the very first showing, and I spoke to Tim, who said that it will end up as a film and it will end up available to the public, and it will no doubt be entered into competitions for documentaries and hopefully end up on television. And this is its due. Donnie's life is one of hardship, and he simply epitomises many of his people who've tried to keep their traditions as the European cultures come in and washed over and through his people. Donnie has followed in the footsteps of his father, Sam, and was taken as a boy, and during the documentary we were shown footage of young Donnie going up country with his father, who was an elder, and taken to the secret sacred places where the Woolagoodja have left their faces, their handprints, their image. And the Aboriginal people, they let us know that they didn't paint the Woolagoodja, that the Woolagoodja left their own imprint there, so that humanity, I would say humanity, would remember them. This is the spirit creators, and Namarali is referred to as the big boss of the Woolagoodjas for the Kimberleys. So in my language I'd say it's the spirit of the Kimberleys, Namarali. And as I say that, and throughout the showing of the documentary, which was I think about 55 minutes, something like that, very, very strong sense of alignment between spirit, which I would understand as the holy ones, most of whom are not in bodies on earth, and the same tradition that the Saltwater people hold. Yes, and of course Donnie became very famous and had 20 odd years where he shot to stardom on a global level after his depiction of the Woolagoodja was the signatory image of the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. Many of the paintings that were on view in the foyer for this showing of Namarali are from the collection of Mark Norval and his wife, and they are of about 5 of the artists of Mounjum. What I discovered last night was that Mounjum was initially established as a Presbyterian mission. And so yes, the church has a lot to answer for, bringing people away from their country. And of course what happens with the history is that the Aboriginal people, they document history. And I love this image here of the cyclone, because of course the Woolagoodja are shapeshifters, and they can take the form of a mountain or lightning or a whale, or in this case a cyclone. I know so very little about it. All I can do is let you know that if you Google Yorna Woolagoodja, Woolagoodja and Magabala, Magabala books, then you'll find and be able to purchase a copy of this incredible book. And there's another one too called Keeping the Woolagoodjas Fresh, which is the first book where Donnie documented the earlier history of the attempt to keep the spirit alive in the memory and the culture, and as a living, breathing tradition. They're profound images, and they're simply profound. There were other artists' work being displayed. We have the Gion here who came. They're the earliest ancestors, and I think it's back 6,000 years. The whole teaching it's a profound esoteric story of life before and after the flood, the Great Flood, the flood that ended one epoch and began another. And here's the Gion, who are female, and the dancers dancing with the Wandjina, and more beautiful images. And of course what's happened is Mark Norval, who's been instrumental in the renaissance of the Wandjina culture, simply by his mentorship and providing space and paint and whatever support and assistance was required. So there's been a renaissance between the late 90s when Donnie started painting, and Donnie's now 74, so yeah, he started in his mid-50s, and then he's led and inspired his whole community. And so now there are, including the women who were previously not artists, not part of the certain sacred traditions in the caves. And so this work here just shows and represents the breadth and the depth of the renaissance of the Wandjina art that has occurred here, primarily because of Donnie Woolagoodja, with the support and assistance of Mark Norval and also Tim Mummery through this wonderful documentary. Some of the images are riveting, and I could spend a lifetime up here and still not know what they mean, and I just invite you to explore them and to enter into wonder. The serpent is very strongly present in many of the images, and this is the rainbow serpent whose name I knew and now I've forgotten. I'm sorry. Yes, but you'll I hope that what I've done by showing you these images is inspire you to look for them and to get the books. And of course the person who's been supporting this renaissance of the Wandjina art is Mark Norval, who's a very well known in this town, came to the region with his wife as a high school teacher, and then became a mentor and provided a workshop space, and has taken out many prizes, and has done installations around the mud flats of the district. Yes, just to help to keep alive and to raise the spirit of the next generation. And so the torch has been passed, and this is what's been done. I think I'm almost finished, except I wanted to say that this evening I'm going off to a talk at Mark's Gallery. And this is a conversation really between Pat Lowe, who wrote a book, I think, some years ago, 10, 20 years ago, called The Boab Tree. And Pat will be in conversation with Mark, and I look forward to that. And the book is available through Backroom Press. Anyway, this has been Chandra Easton from StarAstrologyHealing.com. Bye for now.